Yoni's hand suddenly thrashed, the blade glistening with a sharp crack as he pivoted the handle violently, stabbing the weapon forwards into his own neck. His throat snapped, hot blood erupting into view as he went limp as a doll. His smile never faded, not as his head rolled backwards with a gruesome show of broken bones, not as his body dropped lifelessly, his marionette strings cut with rusty scissors, not even as his skull impacted the ground, his limbs not so much as twitching before he lay dead, scorching blood cooling into a dense slag around his form. My gaze instantly flashed to the observing figure in the doorway for help, landing upon a girl with long black hair draping to her waist. Her mouth was splintered open in utter horror, her pale skin seeming to physically radiate a white glow as her petite hands crawled up her face. "Are you okay?" she cried, stepping forwards, her impossibly slender form snaking atop her spindly, long legs, largely covered by some kind of ornate dress. My irises just contracted into horrified pinpricks, my breath catching. The girl's gangly legs caught mid-stride, her face erupting in further concern as I scrambled backwards as fast as I could. What?" she stammered, eyes flashing between the corpse and me as she took another step forwards. She wore a blank white hoodie, crudely zipped over what looked to be an absurdly decorative Victorian-era dress. She appeared to be in my grade, roughly the same age as me. But that wasn't why she looked familiar. Blue and gold. The two colors glared back at me from within her dark-rimmed eyes, radiating a sort of illness that made them hard to focus on. Her gold eye lay sprinkled with faint, vile orange, the blue one piercing through my skin as she searched my face. I stammered, my eyes digging into her, tearing up and down her body. "Who are you?" "Asa," she stammered. Today was my—" "No!" I cried, my voice dying out as I searched her even closer, watching her pristine teeth glint in the light. No needles visible anywhere, black saliva all but absent from her face as she stared at me in worried confusion. "You are Jonathan, are you not?" she stammered, dual-colored eyes erupting in further horror as she seemed to confirm it in her own head. "The person everyone has been speaking about." I swallowed hard, words still failing me as confusion and distrust splintered through my brain. I didn't," I stammered finally, watching the lake of blood spread out further from the corpse. I didn't, he just..." The girl just quickly removed her hoodie, revealing the low-cut black dress underneath, the frills dancing through the air. She quickly sunk to the ground, attempting to mop up the blood. She adorned heavy black elbow gloves that matched her dress before attempting to move the body. She truly was dressed as if walking out of a Victorian ball. What the hell was going on? "It would appear he just stabbed himself," the girl spoke in strangely fake panic, arms quickly becoming saturated with the dark liquid. Her vibrant eyes flashed back up to me, pupils constricting. Nice, normal circles. Not the sideways slits I had been so certain I had seen on the killer. "What are..." I stammered, watching her continue to clean up the mess. "What are you doing?" "I was not entirely honest with you just now, Jonathan," she stammered, eyes darting nervously around the room. "I know of you a bit more than simply the rumors others have spoken." She darted up from the body, pale, gangly limbs scrambling to grab the chalkboard eraser. "I have been following you for an interval," she stammered, her tone decaying from false overacted horror into methodical, well-spoken sentences. She wrenched out the knife and let it clatter to the floor as she stabbed the eraser into the corpse's throat, plugging the gushing wound. "The reason I transferred into this school is to assist you," she continued, her sentences now utterly emotionless, tactical, and calm. "I hope I am not too late." "What?" I coughed, wincing as she wrenched the body upright against the wall, propping his ghastly head up. She now seemed perfectly at home with her strangely dated getup, her speech becoming more and more anachronistic and bogged down with strange words as her disguise faded. "If you're convicted as the murderer, it would ensure a calamity," she continued, standing up again before slamming the door to the room shut, heel-like boots clacking on the ground as she scrambled over to the janitorial closet. Her dress flipped with unnatural wind as she slashed her heel upwards, pivoting before heaving it down. The handle cracked with a violent snap, her fingers instantly reaching into the hole in the door, wrenching sideways and leaving the heavy wood to swing open. "What?" I stammered. "Why?" She tossed me several bottles of cleaning supplies, only some of which I caught. "Because," she spoke, grabbing a fire blanket and beginning to work it under the corpse, "you are not the killer." My throat clenched, running dry. "If the proper killer is efficaciously able to frame you, then they will go free," she hissed, her proper tone wavering slightly as it filled with malice. "I will not allow this." "How do you—" I stammered. Have you seen them? How do you know for sure I'm not—" "The culprit is afflicted by heterochromia iridium, not dissimilar to me," the girl spoke, standing up and walking over to me. "That means dual coloration of the eyes," she continued after I simply stared at her. "We share the same features." Her hand pressed a roll of paper towels to my chest, her horribly bright, burning eyes searching my face. "It would seem that I arrived not a moment too soon," she spoke, grabbing a bottle of Windex from me. "The killer is most certainly trying harder than ever to make sure someone else takes the fall. A fellow student proceeds into a room with you alone inside. He never makes it out. What conclusion do you believe people will draw? Even with me giving my oath in your favor, the truth is simply too incongruous to believe." I stared at her in disbelief, my mind still reeling. "Why would he kill himself?" I stammered in further horror. I know him! He wasn't suicidal! You're saying this was the killer's doing? How is that possible?" "I have yet to govern that," the girl spoke, eyes meeting mine, her skin like a porcelain doll. "A 15 puzzle indeed. It would seem the killer has some sort of strange influence over her victims." She walked back over to the corpse and bent down, failing to keep her dress out of the blood pool despite her best efforts. She picked up the knife with care before presenting it to me. "Will you assist me?" she questioned, staring into my eyes. "Assist with what?" I stammered. "If you are speaking in general terms," she spoke, "I need your help to catch the killer. If you are speaking about our present situation, I need you to hide this weapon. I shall take care of the body." "Hide the what?" I cried, running my hands through my hair. "Are you serious? We can't do that!" "What do you think will transpire if someone discovers this scene?" she continued, tone unreasonably calm as she adjusted her gloves. "I will not allow you to be wrongly convicted, Jonathan." The blade flashed in the dim light. Wait just a damn minute!" I cried, trying to quell my panic, so many questions splintering through my skull that I felt my flesh begin to blister. "Just who the hell are you again? You say you're here to help me? Just why would you do that? You do realize you look exactly like the killer I've seen, don't you? Why do you care so much about them anyway?" Her eyes dropped to the ground then, crawling with darkness as her voice fell in tone slightly. "My name is Asa Fear, the youngest daughter of the Fear family." I gagged. "You're not," I choked, eyes widening. "As in, like, Charles Fear, like, the guy who built everything." "I have lived in the city my family constructed for all 17 years of my life," she continued slowly. "It is true. My background is one of great wealth and influence. It has also been one of great misfortune for my sister and I. As I'm sure you are aware, my parents, Martha and Rodney Fear, were among the first missing persons reported due to the serial killer. Martha, too? I stammered. I didn't know that. She was in a mental hospital, right? The killer never went after women anyway. How can I trust you? No one even knows what their daughters look like. You could be anyone. If you do not trust my words, then that is your decision, Jonathan, she spoke. My parents were indeed very careful to keep us out of the public eye. Despite this, I can still refer you to some newspaper articles that will affirm my identity. But we haven't the stint for such substances at the moment. No one else is going to die because of me, Jonathan. Her eyes flashed back to me before I could respond. I know where the bodies of my parents lie, she continued, eyes remaining fixed, where the bodies of every missing person are being hidden. Asa's eyes narrowed on me, blood-stained gloves highlighting impossibly flawless skin. At this moment in time, you are either with me or against me, she continued, so I have no quarrel telling you this information, so long as you understand that if you are the latter, I will be forced to take action against you. I swallowed hard, some kind of unnaturally horrific strength resonating through her seemingly spindly and weak limbs. However, she continued, eyes again losing intensity as they dropped to the floor. There is something you should know about me before making any decisions. The knife in her hand dropped slightly, quavering in her delicate fingers. I did not find the location of the bodies for myself, she continued softly. They were shown to me. The obvious question caught in my throat as she answered it for me seconds later. It is of no coincidence that the killer and myself share the same eye coloration, she spoke. Heterochromia is hereditary, Jonathan. A recessive trait that neither of my parents expressed but was passed on to both of their children. While I can assure you that I myself am not the killer, I must admit close relation to them. Her gaze danced along the floor as the gears in my brain slipped. Will you or will you not succor me in this? She gnashed, sudden anger attempting to mask her reddening face as her gaze was unable to meet mine. If you still trust me after what I've just divulged, I give you my oath that I shall catch her before anyone else comes under harm. I bear no allegiance towards her. She has lost sight of any humanity that once stirred in her heart, if there was ever any there at all. I will not pretend to not understand her reasons, nor conjecture that I do not sympathize with her. In contrast, one could contend that I myself was the one to force her onto this path she has now found herself lost within. That story is for another time, however. We are running out of intervals, Jonathan. I feel nothing but regret for what I have caused. This must not continue. I slowly felt the knife drop in my hand, the sticky blade warm against my flesh. If you so choose, Asa spoke slowly, eyes again meeting mine. You are to bury it outside, at least 3 feet deep. Do it out of sight and make sure no one will notice the disturbed dirt. We do not have shovels in our possession, so you must complete the task by hand. Jonathan, if you attempt to flee or turn me in, I hope you bear no grudge against what I must do. My hand lightly shook against the blade. Return to this room once you have concealed the knife, she continued, straining with the heavy body. I will be waiting for you here. I knocked lightly several times, stealing glances behind myself into the hallway. Nothing. My hands burned from lacerations and dirt-filled cuts, my arms sore and weak after digging such a deep hole. The whole time I dug, I still couldn't convince myself that anything was really happening. I was so entirely certain that I would wake up at any minute from this bizarre and horrific nightmare. Between the suicide and this strange girl, surely I was dreaming. In truth, I hadn't spent the whole time digging. Much of it was spent clutching at my phone in panic as I debated what to do. After strenuous research, I had finally been able to find a brief excerpt from an article citing heterochromia within the Daughters of the Fear family, and further looking revealed that Martha Fear had in fact disappeared from the correctional facility she was held in. But was any of this really enough to make the strange girl's case? Even if she was who she said she was, there was no way I could trust her. And I didn't. What finally caused me to put down my phone and start digging till my fingers bled was the realization that I couldn't be the one to call in another body. Asa was right, as much as I hated it. For the time being, I simply had no choice but to hide the evidence and deny until I could find some way to prove the truth. And that day would likely never come. I knocked on the door again, terror beginning to erode my veins as not so much as a sound escaped the room. Where the hell had she gone? She had said she would be in the room, hadn't she? Was this all just a trap after all? Was I supposed to just go in? Beginning to hear footsteps down the hall, my heart pounded, my hand wrenching back the door. The empty floor stared back at me. Pristinely clean, impossibly so. If anything, it looked too spotless, the image of Yoni's body still flickering into view from my memory. I slammed the door shut again. Jesus, had she really cleaned everything up so fast? My back fell against the door as I slowly slid down it. I took countless breaths, none seeming to help in the slightest. The footsteps continued to grow closer until a voice finally rang out. "Jonathan," Asa spoke down the hallway, walking in casual strides, the left side of her dress bunched up around her thigh, no doubt to hide the blood stain. "What is it you are doing on the floor?" I slowly got back to my feet and held up my shredded hands. I forced a grin, waiting before she was within whispering distance before continuing. "The dirt by the playground was the only place soft enough to get it deep enough. It's definitely deep enough now, though. The ground is all torn up there anyway. Shouldn't be a problem." Dual-colored eyes slowly softened into what almost appeared to be the makings of a smile as she stared for several seconds. "That will suffice for now," she spoke calmly, again dissolving into monotone as her eyes glanced away. "Now begins the difficult part. No one is to have any inclination about this. You did not see Yoni after school. You do not know what happened to the janitorial closet door handle, nor the fire blanket. You fell and scraped your hands." Her tone remained completely emotionless as she continued with confidence. "And you are my current partner." My eyes narrowed in confusion. "We will be spending a great deal of time together from here on out," she continued matter-of-factly. "It is the most logical way to dissipate suspicion of our sudden interaction." I stammered. What do you mean, partner?" "I do apologize," she spoke slowly, growing perplexed as she thought over her words. "Is that not the correct way to initiate it? Would you be so inclined as to have the privilege of my time in exchange for yours? To date, as it were." "Whoa," I stammered. "Or we're just long-lost acquaintances." I watched her emotionless eyes absorb the idea. "I don't think we need to take it that far," I continued. "It may do more harm than good, especially since, well..." Asa blinked slowly, utterly motionless. "My sister tends to be a bit on the overprotective side," I coughed. "We've gone through a lot together. We've grown pretty close, and because of that, she's a bit harsh when it comes to... Last time I tried to... We are long-lost acquaintances, then, Asa spoke, pulling out another clean pair of black elbow gloves and adorning them with precision. That will suffice as well. Give me the number of your faxing device, and I shall detail a character biography of myself. I know much about you, but I still expect a bio of yourself in return. I memorize single-space 12-point font pages at a rate of around 30 pages an hour. As such, leave out no details until the page limit surpasses the time I am allotted. I blinked. Fax? I presume that you possess a similar aptitude for memorization, being of the highest grade in your school, Asa continued, nodding and pulling out a small notepad and what looked to be a fountain pen, hovering it over the paper as if awaiting my response. I myself shall make sure that my bio surpasses no more than 120 pages. This should allow you adequate time to rehearse your understanding of me as your friend. The phrase long lost at this age likely suggests more than a 7-year separation, so do not get caught reciting details from that period of time, unless I previously state in a conversation that we have since discussed the information. Fax, I again repeated, my head starting to spin. You've got to be kidding me. I do find myself rarely engaging in jokes, she spoke, tapping the paper lightly. I hate to be piqued, Jonathan, but I shall be needing your number. You do rather seem to be shunning the question. I don't have a fax! I cried, watching her eyes muddle. No one has a freaking fax! Email! Text message! Do you even have a cell phone? You've got to be messing with me! She thought slowly, growing further perplexed as she fumbled over her words for the first time. Email, she stammered. Yes, I do believe I was about to receive such a device. I recall ruminating over our butler installing something with such proficiencies. I do have a cell phone, but have never used a text message. Are they similar to emails? How do you do anything? I cried in horror. How did you even find this place? What are you even? I was unallowed to venture outside often, she spoke, starting to grow flustered. My parents were very strict about proper etiquette. The Victorian era held a bit of fascination for them. My sister and I were much alike puppets. This will all be explained in my bio. Why is it you do not have a fax? How did you even transfer into this school? I cried. They must have had you email them transcripts or whatever. I had one of the butlers take care of such frivolous stuff, she stammered, starting to go red. Whom I must now call upon to change my current grade level to yours. Oh no, I cried, putting out my hands. You're not. I will call him later, she affirmed, completely ignoring me before her eyes again landed on me, and she continued. If you do not have a fax, then we must become friends in person. When do you have unrestricted time in which we may rehearse our roles? It doesn't matter, I sighed. Listen, Asa, I don't believe anything you're saying. I'm sorry, but I would call the police on you in an instant if you wouldn't be able to point out Yoni's body and get me arrested instead. We are not friends. We are not even pretend friends. I want nothing to do with you. I never agreed to help you with anything except for this one time. We are in this together, are we not? She spoke slowly, eyes flashing to bore into me. Not menacingly, but rather filled with a sort of disbelieving hurt that made my fists clench. I must admit that I do not understand your position, she continued. Why is it that you wish to have me apprehended? Because, I cried, teeth gnashing, even if you are who you say you are, you just show up out of nowhere saying that your sister, who just so happens to have identical eyes, is the serial killer? How am I supposed to believe that? You've done nothing to prove you're innocent. My heart stopped. Asa's eyes faded into darkness, shrinking away. I have no proof, Jonathan, she spoke, dark pupils reflecting the tiled floor. I can prove to you who I am, but If that is not enough for you, I am at an unfortunate loss for verses. My heart continued to drop like a weight in my chest. Had I really become this? Was I just as bad as everyone else? This girl had done nothing to harm me so far, just the opposite, in fact. Was this what it felt like to be everyone else, so easily suspicious of others? Certainly, I didn't have any more proof against her than they did of me. I swallowed hard, not realizing how thoroughly this conversation had been taking my mind off the horror of the recent events until I thought back to them. Asa, I spoke slowly, thinking through my next words carefully. What is it you want help with, exactly? She grew confused now, eyes widening as she stared. To catch the killer, right? I continued, seeing her softly nod. I sighed. Stealing a glance over my shoulders, I continued slowly. I would like that a lot as well. I forced a light smile onto my face, seeing it flash back at me from within her dilating eyes. If you think we have a better chance together, I suppose our situations match up enough to where I could reconsider my stance. She blinked, faint joy spreading through her emotionless face before I again spoke out. On one condition, I continued, watching her stop cold in her tracks. We do not rehearse roles or whatever. What is it you mean? She stammered. If we are to work together, then we need to trust each other. I cut her off, causing her face to constrict in confusion. Which is exactly why I don't want a character bio from you. We're not going to pretend to know each other, to spend time together simply to fool others. If we are doing this, I need to know you. Not who you are to others, I need to know the real you. Her face flushed, limbs splaying out. Myself, she stammered. I hardly think such things are... That's what friends do. I cut her off again. I will be just as open to you. It's only fair. Friends, she faltered, hair strands falling to cover her left eye, leaving solid blue to stare forwards. Is that absolutely necessary for this? Entirely, I affirmed, meeting her gaze. What do you say? Her stare was disbelieving, her blue eyes seeming to physically char her skin as it crawled with dark rust. What? She stammered. What kinds of things will that entail? Well, I spoke slowly. For instance, I would like to know why your mother was institutionalized. Her eyes instantly flashed with dark ghosts, her pale skin erupting in gray. You don't have to... I instantly stammered, watching this ghastly reaction unfold in front of me. It's fine if you... I couldn't find any record of her condition, just her admittance. You don't have to tell me if it's... I was proposing to include that information in my bio. She stammered to herself more than anything, her skin further decaying into horrible shades of dullness. Speaking it in lyrics to another face is... Her eyes blinked slowly, looking into the distance as she softly continued. Difficult. Rather more so than I anticipated, but I shall give it a shot if you so desire. Her hands clawed at her gloves. No, it's fine, I called out, stopping her in her tracks. In fact, that's the whole point, actually. She looked at me, her gold eye seemingly trying to burn its way out from within her black hair. We need to get to the point where you feel comfortable telling me things like that, I continued. There are things about my past that I wouldn't want to tell anyone, things I haven't told anyone about me. Ever. But if you're serious about this, we need to be able to share those things at some point. That level of trust is imperative. Things are only going to get worse around here with people growing more and more paranoid. We can't fall into that. I need to know that I can trust you, and you need to trust me more than you've ever trusted anyone. Being friends doesn't mean you tell each other everything by default. You confide in true friends because you know you can, and because you want to. And you accept those things your friends confide in you, no matter what they may be. Asa's face couldn't possibly have been more horrified and disbelieving. She staggered for several seconds before finally choking out some words. I must make arrangements to properly attend this institution tomorrow, she stammered. I'm not sure if I can spare the time to... Not today, I cut her off. I have to take my sister home from her volleyball game, which is just about over at this point. Tomorrow, after school. We'll talk more then, alright? She slowly put the notebook and pen inside her dress and brushed the dark hair from her eyes. I shall see you tomorrow, then, Jonathan, she nodded slowly, looking positively sick, her skin flashing shades of gray as she rigidly stared straight ahead and walked forwards, awkwardly wiggling a massively outdated cell phone from her pocket. Fidgeting with the buttons, unable to press them one at a time with her gloves on, she slowly grew more and more flustered until she was out of the school and the door slowly closed behind her. I stood motionless for several minutes, so utterly lost that I wanted to simply slide to the ground and cover my face. I looked at my hands again, shivers racking my body. Just what the hell had I gotten myself into? The only thing keeping me going before was the knowledge that I truly was innocent. But now... could I even say that anymore?